Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have a full review of the Galaxy A05. Let's get started. This is the most basic device in the entire Samsung portfolio at present. So above it will be the Galaxy A05s and then the Galaxy A15 with its 4G and 5G edition and all the others. So let's see what Samsung can offer us in its most basic edition. Its launch price in Mexico has been 2,499 pesos. This is approximately $145, although the prices here are not the same as over there. In fact, the exchange rate may vary, so just take it as a reference. But at least in Mexico, it is a pretty competitive price considering that few brands have a device in this price range. So it can be very attractive and will probably become one of the best-selling devices globally. So join me to know what it can offer us, which for starters, being a Galaxy, offers us a very good distribution in physical stores, online stores, phone companies, and more. And it also offers us a good compatibility with accessories, that is, its cases are going to be easy to find and many other sections. So the simple fact of being a Galaxy gives it many attractions, but join me to know the rest of features for you to decide if it is something you are looking for or need something better. The front design, like most Galaxy devices, is not very aesthetically appealing, although in this price range we can accept that. What we don't like is that Samsung has this same design on much more expensive devices, that is, it incorporates considerably wide bezels, but I insist that in this price range is what we might expect, especially the bottom bezel is quite large. In this case, Samsung does not make any specification that brings some Gorilla Glass protection, so it seems that it will not have very good resistance or very good aesthetics, but in the price range is what we could expect. We could not get more demanding. On the right side, we find the volume and power buttons. In this case, without the key island, which is a design element that Samsung has in almost all its devices, except in this, which is its most basic model. On the top is only a microphone, and on the left side is the tray where we can place 2 nano SIM cards and a micro SD card, although remember that if you buy this device with phone companies, probably block the second tray, but if you buy it directly with Samsung, you will receive this dual SIM tray. And something to note, since this is a low-cost device, is that it does have a little packaging on this part that will help it resist some water splashes, even though it doesn't officially express a certain level of water resistance. But at least this packaging can give us a little more assurance that it is a well-built device. And on the bottom it comes with headphone jack, another microphone, USB-C port, and the speaker. The device is 8.8 millimeters thick and weighs 195 grams, so it doesn't get to stand out too much in a lightweight or overly attractive design. In fact, the back cover you'll also notice is quite reflective. In this case, it is available in light green, black and silver. I have the last color I mentioned to you, and it comes with a line pattern on this back cover that might make it slightly attractive. However, it is a design that does get to smudge a bit with your fingers, although in the lighter shades it's not as noticeable. But it's not an overly eye-catching design. Remember that Samsung bets on the most minimalist designs, and in this case it is the only Galaxy of the entire current catalog that only has 2 cameras. The screen is 6.7 inches in its diagonal, so it has a good size and offers HD plus resolution, nothing else. So the level of detail it reaches is not too high, but it is more or less what we could expect from a device of this price. Obviously, if you want a more spectacular screen, you will have to invest more money, since in this case you will also notice that if you see the content from the side, the brightness will be reduced in a very important way. So, it is a device that I would recommend only if you are going to use it personally. That is, if you are not one of those people who want to share videos or photos with your friends. Because if you are that kind of user, people who are watching the content from the side are not going to have a good viewing experience. But if you are one of those users who are simply going to be using this phone individually, viewing the content from the front, you have a good enough experience. The screen offers Samsung's PLS LCD technology, and it's definitely a very simple screen. Notice how much brightness is lost when viewing the screen from the side, plus it offers us simple colors. You'll even notice that it doesn't have some color calibration modes that Samsung usually includes on other devices due to screen limitations. Although looking at it from the front, you still have acceptable colors. The brightness is pretty good. I think this point could be attractive. So for outdoor use, it will be pretty good. And regarding the lowest brightness, Note that it's not so low as to super comfortably use this device in the evenings, and the accessibility options also don't integrate the extra dimmed option that is available on other Galaxies. Although again, in this price range we couldn't get too picky. Fortunately, it does have the option of eye protection, although as you will notice it is not possible to apply a filter as intense as if we would find it in other Galaxy devices. In fact, from my point of view, it is better to have this option enabled at all times because the screen can become very cold in automatic mode. And interestingly, this screen is still 60 Hz just like the iPhone SE, so it's a very basic screen. It's not able to show us such fluid movements. In this sense, it can be surpassed by some competitors that do offer 90 Hz screens, even from this cheaper edition. It only has one speaker and the sound is not really very remarkable. The mid-frequencies stand out and therefore the sound doesn't feel of as much quality. It is also not a very loud volume, and obviously having only one speaker we do not have an immersive audio experience. Let's listen to a small test, although remember that it is not the same to listen to it live. And curiously, despite being an equalizer with which we could modify the sound, then the experience is quite simple compared to other Galaxy of higher ranges. In fact, although it has Dolby Atmos, it is reserved for when you have headphones connected, obviously to enjoy a little more immersive sound. Fortunately, what it does retain is the independent application sound, so you can select applications that you want to send their sound to Bluetooth speakers and applications that you want to keep their sound on the phone, so that when you have connected these accessories you can enjoy this two-way audio that can be useful for watching videos while you're listening to music at a party. So this feature can stand out because no other manufacturer usually includes it. And besides the fact that it does have a headphone jack to enjoy wired audio, you could also get to enjoy wireless audio with the aptX codec. So yes, it can give you a little bit more resolution with that codec, but unfortunately it doesn't support the SSC codec, which is the one that Samsung offers for higher resolution audio with the Galaxy Buds. So even though it does support the Galaxy Buds, you can't take advantage of all the audio resolution that Samsung's headphones can offer. One good thing is that this device includes two microphones, unlike other devices in this same price range that only include one. So next we will listen to an audio test recorded with these microphones.
Esta es una prueba de audio grabada con los micrófonos integrados del Galaxy A05.
As all accounts are fairly simple microphones that apparently have some level of noise cancellation that could come to spoil a little definition of your recording. Below you will see a video recorded with this device to note how the microphones behave in very noisy environments, setting my room sound system at maximum volume. As all accounts has a lot of distortion when recording in these environments, also because it tries to cancel noise, producing a very ugly effect on the recording. So I would not recommend it at all if your priority is to record videos in concerts or very noisy environments. The front camera is 8 megapixels with f2 0-point aperture and fixed focus. Fortunately, it retains the quick camera release gesture by double pressing the power button, which is a gesture that Samsung has on all its devices. In fact, you can also repeat this gesture to rotate to the front camera. So this interaction can indeed turn out to be a strong point because other devices don't have it. The camera has 2 levels of amplitude for this front camera, and believe me, it is not going to offer us a very agile experience when taking pictures, so it can get to feel a little slow, especially if you are taking pictures with HDR. It's not going to be able to take pictures very quickly, and if you slide the shutter down you can get a burst, but the burst is pretty slow, so it's not going to give you a very good response. It also has a limit of 30 pictures. In the upper right corner, we have a button where we can access 2 options. They can be the color filters that will appear at the bottom. The funny thing is that you can preview each of them simultaneously in addition to adjusting their intensity. So this is something that other devices do not offer you. We will also find the facial beauty effects that, as you will notice, include 3 types of parameters such as skin smoothness, skin tone, jaw size, and eye size, and each of them with a different selector. So it is a considerably advanced beauty mode considering its price. Possibly we are in front of the best front camera in the category because it has a good level of detail and a good representation of colors, obviously all evaluating it according to its price. It seems to me that it manages to capture textures very well, something that other devices in this segment will not be able to do. I also think it has a good enough range to take good pictures as well. Notice how even indoors it manages to maintain good color saturation even though the level of detail is greatly diminished, but I like that it still has good color and doesn't seem to have too much noise present. Backlit, the preview doesn't look good as it burns out the background too much, but note how it does have automatic HDR, so after capturing the photo it does a better balance of highlights and shadows, achieving a very good quality photo compared to its price. Overall, I think it struggled a bit to balance the tone of the photograph well, as it came out overly warm, although we were indeed in a fairly warm lighting environment, but I think it went a bit too warm. Although in general I think the result will be good because of the detail and the noise management even in the darkest areas, and in the more complicated night backlight scenarios it is not able to give us a good result from the automatic mode, although he notes that using the screen as a flash simulation is going to achieve a better result. And using the night mode, it managed to balance perfectly well the more illuminated areas, but unfortunately it doesn't allow us to use the screen as flash simulation while using the night mode, so in that sense it could improve. But note how this night portrait came out quite well with good enough definition, nice blur, although in the daytime we noticed that the edge detection is not 100% accurate. So it's a portrait that can be easy because it also doesn't detect foreground objects well. So I wouldn't recommend you too much to take portraits with the front camera, as you're also going to get some overexposed areas. On the back we find the 50 megapixel main camera with a 22mm lens, so it's considerably wide. So despite not having an ultra-wide camera, it can give us a good enough level of wide. We have f1.8 aperture, it also has autofocus although it doesn't have optical stabilization, and the top camera is basically for decoration because it's a 2 megapixel depth capture camera, just a fairly simple 2 megapixel camera. So consider that the device only has one camera. Now let's try to capture number 3 to see roughly how fast the shutter speed of this camera might be for those moments where you want to capture the specific moment. I'm going to do several tests to be sure of the performance, and in this last test I'm going to be looking at the cell phone viewfinder because, as you notice, it has a little bit of a delay. So we're going to try to capture number 3, and you notice that it has practically half a second delay. So it's going to be a little bit tricky to capture the exact moment. You have to anticipate a little bit to be a little bit closer to the right moment. Fortunately though, it does have a burst that you can initiate by sliding the cell phone, although it is a very slow burst of up to 30 pictures, but it definitely doesn't help us much. Fortunately, the burst doesn't take long to start, but notice how it practically takes a quarter of a second between one picture and another. So if you are one of those who want the exact moment, maybe this device is not going to be enough and you need to invest more money. Again, in the upper right corner, we will find the facial beauty options with the same 4 parameters that we saw in the front camera, and also the color filters with the same operation. So it does offer us good options unlike other devices. And if you tap on screen, you can adjust the focus or exposure manually. In fact, you could also get to lock it so that it doesn't move from that parameter. And if you want more controls, you can also access the Pro mode, which can be a strong point because in this price range there are a few devices that offer us something similar. Here you can change the ISO, which can go up to 3200. Also the shutter speed that can go up to 30 seconds. We also have exposure compensation, focus, white balance, and even in this part you can regulate the type of metering. Only you can't adjust other parameters such as tint or contrast that other Galaxy devices allow you to modify, and it doesn't have raw photography. Fortunately, for a good user experience, a QR code scanner is included directly in the camera, so you don't need to open Google Lens or any other app to do these actions. You simply scan the QR code, click on the link, and it will automatically do the action. In fact, if you want to scan some sheet or document, note that it's also going to have automatic edge detection to immediately crop that document for you. Although it's only going to save as a cropped image, so it doesn't have some filters to make it look like a professional scan, but it may come in handy. Remember that even though it is in image, you can select the print option within the share options. From this section, you could also export this document to a PDF format. The 50 megapixel camera does work very well in this high resolution mode. Notice how we can zoom in to notice more details. So you could very well crop your pictures while still keeping a good quality in your photo. Even though it's not a high-end camera, I think it still manages to have a good balance of photo tone without going to any extremes. Although note that at the edges of this camera, you will notice some chromatic aberration and slight distortion. But it's nothing really serious. I think that in this price range, we can perfectly well accept this photograph as something of good quality. In fact, it's funny because indoors I like the picture even more, and that in this case there is not so much lighting present, so I think this camera feels more comfortable when it doesn't have to deal with so much light, as in this case I think it manages to reduce noise in a good enough way. It maintains color saturation well and the level of detail well. Possibly only falls a little short in contrast, but it is a photograph that we can consider of good quality if you realize the price that has this device. In backlight, you notice that the preview is still not well optimized, but it does detect that you need to use HDR. And the resulting photograph, I think, has a good balance of highlights and shadows, although it has very low contrast. Notice how the darker areas seem to come out a bit lighter than ideal. So the colors might also come out feeling slightly odd in these kinds of conditions. It would be best to take pictures with the light from the front. And at night with the automatic mode, the light sources that are present in the photograph are going to come out completely burnt out, although the darker areas come out with well-controlled noise, although without too much color. If you use night mode, I think it improves on these two aspects specifically. The brighter areas manage to have a little better balance, and the darker areas don't have as much noise, although the color saturation still remains a little low, but I think the result is good using night mode. In fact, notice how in darker areas the camera performs excellently compared to what we've seen in other devices in this price range. So it is a camera that can indeed give you good pictures even when there is not much illumination, at least if you do not get close, because if you start to get closer to try to see details, you will notice that it is not a camera of such a high level. But I find it curious that even using the night mode, the color saturation is diminished even though the level of detail tries to rise, and above all, the noise handling is much better. Regarding the zoom, note that this device is not able to maintain good quality at different digital zoom settings. The closest it can get is 10x, but the picture looks very stretched, so it doesn't seem to have the ability to take advantage of all the information from the 50 megapixel sensor. On the other hand, macro photography I think will be of good quality. It's not a specialist, but I think that even though you don't have a macro camera, you can still get to take good pictures in these kinds of conditions. In fact, I think you get more detail and the result is definitely good. Only in this case it was a moving object, and that's why this ghosting effect comes out. But the overall result seems very positive to me because of the good color saturation it achieves and the good level of detail. And despite not having an ultra-wide camera, I already told you that the main camera has a little more amplitude than normal, and if you combine it with the panoramic mode, I think the result is quite good. I insist, even though it doesn't have an ultra-wide camera. So with this mode you can get to have very spacious pictures with a good level of detail, and the portrait pictures, notice that it's going to take them with good quality, especially if you don't have objects nearby. Since you notice how the body has good edge detection, the blur is nice in the background. In this case, being in a backlit setting, again it seems to lose contrast as we were seeing in the picture without portrait mode. And objects in the foreground, it seems to more or less detect them, but it doesn't have very accurate edge detection. That's why I insist that the depth camera it has as an additional camera doesn't really seem to serve its purpose. Still, the portraits I think could turn out to be of good quality considering the price. Note that the video recording can go up to Full HD at up to 60 frames per second, something that almost no device is going to offer you in this price range, so it can give you much more attractive results compared to its competition. The front camera is not capable of reaching that speed, so it is limited to 30 frames per second, but it still gives us a good experience, especially considering that in this price range, other devices on the front camera only record in HD. Again, in the upper right corner, we have a button for the beauty effect, where there is only one parameter unlike the photo, but the recording is kept in full HD, unlike other devices that when you use the beauty mode, the resolution is reduced to HD. In addition, the color filters that we saw in photography are also available, so we have good options for video recording. Finally, when you are starting your video recording, notice that a button will appear to take pictures, another button to pause and resume the content, one more button to turn on the flashlight without the need to stop your video recording, and even a quite convenient slider for zooming with two different magnification presets also appears. And finally, it also allows us to rotate to the front camera without stopping our video recording, something that even the most expensive iPhone is not able to do. So it is an aspect that I would like to highlight as a very strong point of this device. Video recording will be very easy because even without too much movement, it is immediately noticeable that it does not have some kind of stabilization. In addition, the video feels with an over sharpness that comes to be slightly annoying. Obviously, the colors will not be too accurate either, so it has a very simple behavior for video recording. Indoors, you will notice that it is not able to define details very well because there is less light present, unlike in photography where it could do a better job. In this case, I don't think so because of the level of detail, although fortunately it controls noise well and maintains color saturation well. In backlit conditions, it will not be advisable to record with this device as it will give priority to illuminate the face and sacrifice the whole area of lights in the back. So it will be more advisable to record with the light from the front. And at night when trying to eliminate enough noise, it also eliminates a lot of details, so the textures will not be present. The most illuminated areas may not be well balanced. Although this is expected in this price range, we could not get more demanding. Here the good news is that there is not too much noise, although as I tell you, the denoising can also remove a little detail, and in darker areas it is not able to saturate colors well, but within what is expected in this price range, I think it meets good quality night video recording. Unfortunately, as I had already anticipated, it does not have stabilization, so even when walking the movements can be annoying, and when running they will be completely exaggerated. However, curiously, this camera integrates HD slow motion at some of the lowest settings. This is noteworthy because in its price range, almost no device will include slow motion, although the focus can get a little lost. But the simple fact of giving us slow motion at this price is a positive thing. It will also offer us a fast camera mode, but it is quite simple, plus it is only in HD, so it offers very little quality for this mode. In addition, the speed can go from 5 to 30x, nothing more. Then 30x is quite short if you want to record some landscape with a good quality. The front camera will not perform very well in video recording as it has no stabilization and can burn a lot of the background in order to get a well-lit face, so the result is not very positive. In addition, curiously it goes at 20 frames per second even though it says in the specifications that it goes at 30. This is true when you are shooting outdoors where there can be a bit of backlighting. However, curiously, when recording indoors, it goes to 30 frames per second, which is why I say that this camera seems to feel more comfortable when there is not so much light present. In fact, indoors the result is positive. It is true that there is noise present, but it is not exaggerated and fortunately maintains good color saturation. And at night the result is very similar. It seems to have just a bit of complications with the color tone that could become too warm, and in the darkest areas there will be much more noise present. Also, if we go to extreme situations, it does not have a support through the screen to better illuminate the face, then it could definitely still improve with some update. This front camera also offers us the fast camera mode, but again it is quite simple and does not offer us slow motion or dual recording mode. In the software, we will find Android 14 with One UI 6 from Samsung. So it comes with the recent software from Google, although on the Samsung side, it still doesn't get One UI 6.1, which would be the latest, but it's getting very demanding that on the cheaper device, we can immediately enjoy the latest version of One UI. In fact, one positive thing is that it gives you 2 years of software updates with 4 years of quarterly security patches. So, in this price range, it is a very good thing to have a clear policy on how many updates you will receive, unlike some other competing devices that will not be able to offer you any promises. Also, you already know that Samsung adds some options. The most prominent will be modes and routines. So this is not going to be found on other devices, only on the Galaxy. And I love that it's available from these devices that are the most basic devices. So you can quickly enable some special mode to change the settings of your phone. You could also create routines to automate all kinds of things on your mobile device. For example, we can create specific routines with conditions that trigger a series of consequences. The conditions are very broad. For example, it could be a dismissed alarm, or when you are exercising, or even if you happen to plug in your hearing aids, or any other type of setting. I'm going to show you one of the routines that I usually use. For example, I select that the first consequence is to open an application. Although for that you must give it a special authorization, but after fulfilling it, observe, I can select that at the moment of opening the gallery. The consequence is simply that the rotation of the screen is enabled, and when exiting the gallery, this action will be reversed. So this way I avoid having to manually activate the rotation every time I enter the gallery. That's just one of the many examples of routines that you can create. In fact, there is a section where you can explore several routines that are used by many Galaxy users. Also, the notifications come with a different style. Notice that it is called a pop-up notification style. You can select which apps you want to display this style, and you can customize them to display with different colors or different options. So it's also a customization tool in your notifications. And while we're on the subject of customization, remember that you also have the Theme Center, which has lots and lots of themes available to install. Some are paid and some are just free. So you choose all this that you can get to have to customize your device. Obviously, since it doesn't have an OLED screen, it doesn't have the always on display feature. However, within the lock screen, remember that you do have access to some widgets by tapping the clock, where you can access basic information, voice recorder. You can also customize specifically which widgets you want to be displayed on the lock screen. Being a basic Galaxy, it also doesn't integrate Bixby, Samsung's voice assistant, but it does allow you to configure how you want the side button to work. Also within the Labs section, we have the option to force multi-window for all apps. And in this price range, it's kind of amazing because no device is going to allow you these options to have apps running as a pop-up mode. Notice how in this case I can have multiple apps, and notice that by swiping from one corner, I can transform a traditional app into a pop-up app. And all applications can work in this format, unlike other mobile devices that only have a very limited catalog of applications or covers. These applications can also be minimized in this small floating bubble and then reused. And obviously you can also minimize them if you slide them to the side of the screen. So they offer us a very good multitasking tool, plus you can transform it into a split screen with just two apps. So we have very good options here as well. We will also find several gestures available, although they are quite simple. In this case, there is not something advanced that I can show you, but what I do like is the one-handed use mode, which not only reduces vertically but also horizontally to make it easy to reach all areas of the screen. It also includes dual messenger options to clone some apps and be able to have two accounts of them, even with a separate contact list. Within the gallery, note that if you select multiple photos, you can press the create button to access a collage without the need to download external applications. And finally, like every Galaxy, remember that you can access Samsung members. Through this application, you can access a forum where you could get to report any kind of problem with your device, but the highlight is that Samsung offers us some discount coupons with different types of businesses. So if you like to take advantage of coupons to buy food, clothes, go on vacation or other things, here you can take advantage of these benefits that Samsung offers you for having purchased a Galaxy. Samsung's system, remember that I find it to be one of the most advanced today because of the good number of options it offers, although fewer options come on this device than on other more expensive Galaxy. However, the experience is still very good, only it should be noted that the optical drive is on the Z-axis, so it is a simple vibration that is not able to interact with other elements of the user interface, as we do see in other more advanced devices. In security, we find one of the weakest points because it has no fingerprint reader. That is an absence that will definitely weigh heavily, considering that the vast majority of cell phones today do integrate this type of sensors. So in this case, the best way to have a secure experience is to define a PIN or a special pattern. Although it does have facial recognition, the reality of things is that it will be a very simple unlocking. It will not give you much security because it could be circumvented by some people. So facial unlocking is not so recommended, but if you are too lazy to be trying to unlock your phone every time with a pin or a pattern, remember that within the unlock screen you can access the extended unlock. This way you can register safe places so that while you are in these environments, the device does not get to lock and remains fully unlocked. So it can be a useful tool. In this case, being a simple Galaxy, it doesn't integrate secure folder, it doesn't integrate Samsung Pass, it doesn't integrate secure Wi-Fi, although fortunately it does have the option to encrypt the memory card. Interestingly, it is also going to integrate Samsung Kids. So even if you want to buy this cell phone for a child, you can set up Samsung Kids and the child will not be able to leave this mode unless they verify through a special code. Obviously, parents will be able to authorize which applications can be used in this mode through a special PIN. You can add the apps that you have installed on your phone, or you can also remove the suggestions that Samsung gives you by default. So it's a pretty good experience to have Samsung Kids on this device. I insist that to get out of this mode, you will have to be authorized through a special PIN. So it gives you a good level of security for a parental control. In fact, also within the digital well-being and parental control section, you can adjust some app usage limits as it gives you a statistic of how much time you consume in each of these sections. You can also connect it with the parent device to set all this up. But if you are concerned about cybersecurity, remember that in this case, Samsung includes a partnership with McAfee, so you can have a malware scan on your device constantly. Also within the security section, remember that there is the option to locate your mobile in case it is lost. Just make sure you enable all these options that are disabled by default because it will be very useful to turn them on. So not only do you have the option to find your device with Google's network, but also with Samsung's network, and with that, you gain much more chances of finding your device. Remember to enable this option. In my case, it doesn't allow me to enable it because I don't have a SIM card in place. If you are going to take your cell phone to be repaired, remember that there is also the maintenance mode so that your data is blocked and cannot be accessed. And finally, in the emergency options, you can set important information, and by pressing the power button 5 times, you can access an emergency call. The 5000 milliamp battery is quite good. In this case, having an underpowered processor, believe me, the battery lifetime is going to be very extended. In my test, it was close to reaching 6 hours with the battery drainer running in the foreground. So that's an outstanding battery, although I insist that's largely due to the fact that the processor won't be very powerful. But if you are one of those who are not looking to have a lot of power and gives more priority to battery life, definitely this device can give you a very good experience in that regard. In addition, remember that it also brings the traditional power saving mode, or you can access the power saving mode settings to activate an option of an even more aggressive and extreme mode that will restrict many options on your phone, but still will give you access to 4 applications that you consider essential in your daily life. So, for an emergency, it can be quite useful. However, despite having a good battery, the bad news comes when you see the charger, because it is not included in the box, so you must buy the charger separately. Using the original Samsung 25-watt charger, I got a good enough charge. With 15 minutes, it recovered 22% of the battery. With 30 minutes, it recovered 41%, and the full charge was practically over in 2 hours. So, as you realize, the first 30 to 45 minutes of charging it goes with good power. Then it gets a little bit slower to take care of the health of the battery. So it doesn't seem like a spectacular charge to me, but in the price range it's fine. Obviously, ideally the charger should come included in the box, so we can't say that this is a section we like. Also, with the version of the system it has, it still doesn't have very good battery protection mechanisms. It only has the battery charging lock that can be very useful if you are one of those who need to carry the device connected all the time. For example, if you are going to drive Uber or carry your cell phone connected all the time in the car, it can help you to keep the battery from wearing out so much. But with the next update, you're likely to get more battery protection modes. This device supports 4G networks. Obviously, being very inexpensive, it does not yet have support for 5G networks. The good news is that you can regulate which applications will be able to connect to the internet with your mobile data, and which applications will only be able to do so via Wi-Fi, so you can have better control of your data plan consumption. For example, YouTube, I would select only over Wi-Fi, but obviously it's up to you as a user what you want to select. Obviously, you don't have the eSIM feature available. That will be on much more advanced devices. And it also has Wi-Fi 5, so it's capable of giving you good download speeds in this price range. It also has Bluetooth 5.3 for good compatibility and stability with your accessories. It doesn't have NFC though, so you wouldn't be able to make mobile payments using your cell phone. Like several low-cost devices, it does integrate FM radio, although you need to have headphones connected for it to work. And one of the important absences is that it doesn't have Smart View to wirelessly project your screen, so you can't have that option. What you can have is Android Auto, but the sensors are very limited. As you can see, you do have accelerometer and light sensor, but you don't have geomagnetic field sensor, let alone gyroscope. And the proximity sensor, as you'll notice, is completely physical, unlike other more expensive devices that integrate virtual sensors. So interestingly, the proximity sensor is good. In the ecosystem, you'll notice that despite being a Galaxy, it has a bit more limited functions. Obviously, you can connect Galaxy Buds, a Galaxy Watch, or a Galaxy Fit to it perfectly because it has the Galaxy Wearable app perfectly included here. So you have a very good level of interaction with all of these devices. From the headphones, you can listen to notifications. From the watch, you could get to take pictures and other tools. So the Galaxy ecosystem is pretty good. However, it doesn't come with Windows connectivity features included, so if you wanted to connect your cell phone to your computer, you're going to have to install things separately and it might be a bit more complex process. However, if you have a Galaxy Tab, you can answer calls or messages directly from your tablet if they are using the same account. So, it brings good technologies. Remember that it also includes Quick Share to send files easily. And obviously, Samsung accessories are going to be detected quickly for fast connection. Also, to control the Internet of Things devices, it comes with Samsung SmartThings. Remember that with SmartThings, we're going to be able to have access to our lights, air conditioning, and other accessories that we connect to our smart home. And it comes with a very good compatibility with different brands. It's already compatible with the MATA standard as well. So everything where you see those stamps, you're going to be able to use the devices directly on your cell phone. So Samsung offers a well-developed ecosystem. And in the case of cloud storage, in addition to what Google offers on all Android devices, in this case, Samsung also has a partnership with OneDrive. So you'll see that the gallery comes connected to OneDrive so that when you log in, you can directly back up your photos there. It doesn't give you additional storage though, just the free 5 gigabytes. And later, if you want more, you'll have to pay. I'd like it better if Samsung had its own cloud, but at least it doesn't seem to be 100% dependent on Google like other manufacturers. Now let's talk about performance. This device comes with the MediaTek Helio GG GTL processor, a processor we've seen present in other devices in this price range as well. But it's a good thing because Samsung usually used to put simpler processors than its competition. But in this case, it's a processor that we'll say is on par with what other manufacturers offer. Although the RAM stays with 4 GB and Samsung's system can be very heavy, and with 4 GB of RAM you're not going to be able to have many applications open. In fact, after opening more than 4 applications, the device can become very slow. As you can see, in this case it took about 6 seconds on average to open each of these applications. And I only opened 12 applications because I already warned you that it is a device that will not allow you to open many applications. In fact, with 12 applications, note that the device is going to have constant reboots when you are switching between each of these applications. So the ideal on this device will be to keep about 4 apps open at most, because as I opened those apps, the device reacted very fast. But as I opened more apps, the device became much slower, so it will not be advisable to use it with all these apps open. Notice that by having 3 apps open, the device can maintain a much smoother experience. But I think this is the maximum number of apps you can have open to have this level of smooth experience. So, the 4 GB of RAM it has seems to be insufficient. It also allows us to have virtual RAM of up to an additional 4 GB. But believe me, it doesn't work well. I have seen other devices with virtual RAM that work much better, but this is not the case. Obviously, this may vary because there are other countries where they have larger RAM. So the bigger the RAM, the more applications you will be able to open at the same time. Finally, to test the power that this device has, we are going to export videos recorded with this device together so that they add up to a total of 1 minute, and we are going to check how long it takes to do this action. And presto, it took about 43 seconds, showing us that it doesn't have too much power to edit video. You can get it done, but it's not going to be very fast. Let's finish by talking about gaming. Note that we do have access to the gaming hub, which could collect the games that we have installed, but it could also give us access to games that we don't have installed that won't use storage space. So it could become an attractive option for those who simply entertain themselves with casual games and don't want their storage space to run out too quickly. However, note that we don't have access to Game Booster, which would be the suite of additional tools that Samsung offers its users. So it is simply a manager of installed games and that's it. But it does not offer us an experience beyond, unlike other Galaxy, which at the time of opening the Game Booster is also enabled with additional options such as monitors and special plugins that you can download. It should be noted that this device does not include screen recorder, so it is quite strange to find a device with these features in the middle of the year. In Call of Duty, this device by default loads low graphics quality at a medium frame rate, but it does allow us to go up to medium graphics quality at a high frame rate, which is remarkable in this price range. Obviously, many effects will be disabled, but for a device this inexpensive, it is remarkable that it has good graphics quality, as in other devices of this price we have seen that even several elements appear as boxes and not with their textures, so it really goes quite well. Its average was 32 frames per second, it reaches 40 at some points, but obviously it's going to have quite a bit of instability. It's not something disastrous, but I think it's going to do well enough. In fact, the temperature is also going to be an important parameter because it doesn't get too hot. In the Legends game, we changed the default setting to low quality at 60 frames per second. At the moment, it is capable of reaching 60 frames per second, although its average was entry level. It will not be free of cuts, so at times there will be significant loss of frames, but it is not constant. So yes, it can still give you a smooth enough gaming experience as long as you select a low graphics quality. In addition, the heating is still acceptable, although it starts to bother in this case. In the case of Free Fire, with all settings set to very high graphics, it results in a rather unstable experience. Let's say that it fluctuates a lot. Yes, there are moments where it reaches some of the highest, but most of the time it is closer to some of the highest and also has some moments of hitches. So, it is not a device that is going to be recommended to play with very high graphics, but we are encouraged to select the heaviest graphics settings for this game because it is not such a complex game. However, it is confirmed that this device doesn't have that much power, but if you choose graphics that are not that advanced, I think you're going to play much smoother. So for the moment, this has been all for this video. I think it's a good device for anyone looking for a basic Galaxy. Remember, it's recommended to have 3 apps open. It takes nice pictures. The screen is really simple, and in many other parameters it's also simple, but we couldn't ask for much more from a device of this price. If you want a more advanced experience, you will obviously have to invest more money. For the moment, this has been all for this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, you know you can tell us, and we'll see you next time.